Welcome to Voting for Change. My name is Terry Dance-Bennick, and I'm joined today with my co-host, Professor Michael Prince. And we are fortunate today to have Eleanor Vannan with us, who is a director with the Camosun College Student Society. And we thought this was timely because students are certainly going to be having a major role to play in the upcoming referendum, as you know, on electoral reform. And we understand that Elections BC and the proponent group, Vote PRBC, are reaching out to every single post-secondary campus in BC to make sure that students are informed and that they cast their ballots. So we were very happy to hear that Camosun has publicly, the Student Society has endorsed ProRep, and we just want to start off with Eleanor telling us about how that happened.
Well, first of all, thank you, Terry, Michael, for having me. ProRep on campus. So I'm a political science student, so it is something that I spend a lot of time thinking about: electoral systems, electoral reform. And this past April, I won an election and I became one of the board members for the Camosun Student Society. And we run in a funny way. We almost run for cabinet positions, and we have little areas of focus. And then once we're on the board, we branch out into other things. So I was elected as the Student Wellness and Access Director, which means I handle students with disabilities and mental health. Once I was on the board, I was given the position of chair, and I was also put on the Campaigns and Advocacy Committee. So ProRep on Camosun, or at least as far as the Student Society is concerned, it really started at one of those campaigns and advocacy meetings. And it started because we were talking about the municipal elections and how we needed to find a way to get students more involved in municipal politics. And we were sitting around and we were talking about, you know, some of our own issues with politics and what we're seeing. And I've been deeply involved with proportional representation for a while, and I said, we've got this referendum coming up. The municipal elections, it's important. They're important. We need to put energy into that. But we have this opportunity, and from my perspective, it's a once-in-a-generation opportunity. I don't think I will see another referendum like this until I'm a very old woman. So it's a now or never thing for me. And it was that moment that we decided, okay, we need to bring this to the larger group and see how we are going to advocate for electoral reform on campus. And then when it came to the larger group, this question came up: do we have the mandate from the students for this? And a few people said, we need to be listening. We need to listen to our student body. And we kind of went back and forth with that. And we stopped for a second and we said, there are times to listen, and there are times to lead. And this was a moment for us where we said, you know what? We won the election. We have a mandate to lead the student body, and this is a moment where we need to be showing some leadership. And so that's why we came out in support of proportional representation, because as a group, we looked at what our current electoral system does for students and what a proportional representation electoral system would do for students, and we said this is more beneficial to our students than first past the post is. And now is the time for us to stand up and work and educate our student body on how this is going to positively impact their lives.
Wonderful. How did you get so passionate about ProRep?
Well, there are a few reasons. I'll start with a little funny story. My son is 5 years old, and he's at that phase in life where he's very focused on careers. Oh, there's a fireman, there's a policeman, doctors, lawyers. And my mother was redoing her will, and so she said, oh, you know, Benedict, I'm gonna go see a lawyer. And he was like, well, Nana, I need to go with you. And he was there, and all the lawyers in this practice, or almost all of them, were all women. And walking out with my mother, he turned and he said, Nana, lawyers are women. And it was this funny little moment, and my mom goes, well, no, like, men can be lawyers too. Women and men, they can do the same jobs. And it was kind of a funny story we told. And then I stopped for a second and thought about what that meant, that my son looked at these women who were lawyers and said, women are lawyers. And for me, it's deeply related to why I support proportional representation. I want my son and all his friends to be able to point to positions of power and say, there's someone like me there. I can aspire to that job. I can aspire to go to school and get a great education and serve my community. And for me, proportional representation, we see better representation of women, we see better representation of visible minorities and invisible minorities. I'm a student with a learning disability. This is kind of the other reason why pro-rep is so important for me. I went to school during a time when there wasn't a lot of support for students with disabilities. And as a result, I dropped out of high school. I went back to school as an adult, and I'm now getting my undergrad degree, but when I was thinking about it, there wasn't a politician in power that my parents could go to and advocate for what I needed. They couldn't advocate for students like me. Even when I was able to vote, I've been in the situation where I had an elected official that I didn't support and who wouldn't support what I needed them to advocate for. And then I've had the opposite situation where I've had someone I really liked, but they're not in power. And so I can talk to them and they can agree with me, but there's very little they can do. And so for me, it's a real lived experience that there is so much value in having someone who can get something done, even if that's through compromise and parties working collaboratively. Having that person who can be your advocate is so immensely valuable. And under proportional representation, every person will have that advocate for what they need.
No wonder you're majoring in poli-sci.
So you've touched on, and I love hearing, because so much about politics starts with the person and the lived experience. You're a director, you're in an official position at Camosun Student Society. You're clearly campaigning for the pro-rep. So what are you hearing from other fellow students about their thoughts about the first past the post system, our existing system, and what they are saying, either from their own experiences or just as they're kind of thinking about it intellectually, their kind of hopes and concerns or worries about both status quo and where we may choices ahead?
So the biggest struggle we're facing in campaigning is a lack of knowledge. I say to students, well, our current system first past the post. These are students who have voted and they don't know our electoral system. For me, that's one of the funny things about people saying, oh, proportional representation systems are too hard to understand. A lot of people, they're familiar with first past the post, and that's great, but that's the extent of their knowledge. So for a lot of our campaigning, the first step is educating people about what exists now and what the other options are. So we spend a lot of time saying to students, forget the newspaper. You know, there's a lot of op-eds going on.
Right.
Forget the newspaper. Every single student at university writes a research paper, at least one, but many more than that. And we say, if you really want to know what these systems do, go to the library website and type in studies on proportional representation. I have such a deep belief that our students are smart and capable and can look at raw data and figure out what's right for them. So there's that education, and a lot of it is fighting the things we've seen in op-eds. So talking to students, you know, it's great to have opinions. There are lots of places in life where your opinion is really, really valuable, but some things are empirically true and some things are not. And so getting past that hurdle of saying to students, you know, what does the data say? You know, what can we look at and find some concrete evidence for? And the other thing is, a lot of students want progress. You know, no matter what their political affiliation, they want us to be moving in the right direction. And where I come from this is, like, we have a pendulum right now. We go far to one side, far to the other side, and honestly, no program is enduring. And then I ask students, you know, when we're having this discussion, what are the things in Canada or in BC that you would say to someone from another country, this is what I'm proud of.
Right.
These are our best social programs. And a big one is healthcare.
Right.
You know, it's not a perfect system, but it's really good. And another one, which surprises me given the age of our students, but it's the Canadian pension plan. And these are two things that came in under a minority government.
Right.
It shows to me, and I think to a lot of our students, that collaboration, compromise, breed enduring policies that are beneficial for all of us. And that's what students want. We want something that's going to last and that's going to make all of our lives better.
Right, right. So are you running workshops or panels, or, you know, you're saying go check the websites, go to the library, do the research, here's some of the facts, both, I assume, of systems around the world of proportional representation, so you kind of get them the evidence. But is the society running its own information sessions or working with other groups to get the information out, get the conversation going?
So we've got a multi-phase plan.
Right.
The first thing has been getting students to pledge to vote. So every day on campus, on each of our campuses, there are at least 2 people who are standing out there and just talking to students. I mean, saying, you know, hey, what do you think about affordable housing? You know, what do you think about transit? What do you think about all these different things? And students are kind of like, oh, yeah, I would like affordable housing, or I'd like this and that. And we say, great. Do you want to know how our electoral system impacts that? And so we tie it into real world examples of, you know, this is the thing in your life that is really important to you. And this is how the way we elect people impacts that. So that's been our strategy right now. We are also moving to have a few information nights, and we have an open door policy. That's the big thing with the CCSS, is that we're a fairly transparent organization. Our meetings are at the same time, they're open to guests, and we're visible on campus. I mean, it's a fairly small institution compared to some of them, but our board is made up of personalities. They're visible on campus, they're committed. So I have people who come up to me while I'm in line for the bookstore to buy a textbook, and they go, hey, you're Eleanor, you know, I've seen you in our school newspaper. Can I tell you what I need done? and that's starting to happen a lot with the proportional representation campaign, is that our strategy is, if we make ourselves available, if we point people in the right direction, if we give them some opportunities, they're going to be really happy to engage. And that's what we're seeing right now.
Great.
How many of you got pledged to vote?
I don't know the exact number, but I would be comfortable saying that I have talked to and signed up probably about 600 people myself.
Wonderful.
So it's going to be more than that.
Yeah.
And
What's your goal?
Our goal is about 2,000. So I haven't checked the enrollment for this year. Typically we sit around 10,000 people. So I mean, really our goal is to have as many conversations as we can with as many students. But we're having some good impact and some good traction. I mean, people are coming back days after the initial conversation and saying, I thought about what you said, and, you know, and what about this? And then we go, well, you know, okay, let's go deeper. And that's the thing that's great is, you know, a lot of times students are on their way to class, and I say, you know, do you want to talk about electoral reform? And they're like, oh, I'm late, you know, I can't. And we kind of, you know, yell something after them, like, have a nice day, we're here till 2. And then they come back, and because it was a positive experience. And that's really how we're trying to get students on board, is to give them some positivity and something they're happy to get behind.
Wonderful.
So how do you counter some of the skepticism or cynicism that students may have, younger voters? I mean, I see it among older voters too, but obviously in your context at the college, people have got a lot of other issues or concerns, their grades, their courses, the housing, that. So how do you address that kind of cynicism towards politics in today's age?
Yeah, it is. It's a difficult one for sure. I mean, one of the things I'm finding refreshing is that the really cynical students I'm encountering our students my age, we're mature students coming back to school. We've had a few rounds. The 18-year-olds have been really refreshing. The 19-year-olds, these young students who maybe haven't been eligible to vote in an election before, they've got a lot of hope. And I think it's great that we have this opportunity now because they're not deeply entrenched in a previous voting system that has left them feeling rather nihilistic towards democracy. One of the things we're really trying to do with cynicism is get to the root of it. You know, what is it that has made you feel cynical? Because a lot of the time, it's things that proportional representation can fix. And that for us, that cynicism can be a great campaigning tool. We can say to people, we understand that. We've personally felt it too. And that apathy or that frustration with a lack of representation is why we've come to realize this is something we need to support. So it's good. It can be a bit of a fuel, but it's not as deeply as entrenched in students as, and which gives me hope. It gives me a lot of hope to see young people just raring to go.
That's great. You give me hope. And I guess I have one final question. When are you running to be MLA? We have to go now. I just want to thank Eleanor for this inspiring dialogue with us, and thank my co-host, Professor Michael Prince.
Thank you.
Be sure to vote. Your ballots will be coming out shortly, and we urge all viewers to make sure you mail it in by November 30th and contact Elections BC if you have any questions. Thank you again for joining us today.
Thanks, Eleanor.
Thank you.
Great.
That was wonderful.